Welcome to the C-Suite Mentor, the place where you will learn the tools, strategies, and mindset to scale your business sustainably and build a lasting legacy. I'm your host, Theresa Cantley. As a fellow CEO, I understand what it takes to scale a business to 7 and multiple 8 figures. It's not necessarily what you might think. It requires a complete shift in how you think, strategize, and execute key actions in your business. My mission is to help CEOs step back into the driver's seat of their business by optimizing their operations, empowering their team, and staying in total alignment with their big vision. So, are you ready to exchange everything that hasn't worked for strategies that will? You're in the right place, so let's go. All right, and welcome back to another episode of the C-Suite Mentor podcast. I am your host, Theresa Cantley, and I am joined by a magnificent person. And this episode is going to be, I just know it is going to be so good because the topics that we're going to be talking about, I know probably every person listening to this podcast, but probably I think everyone has struggled with these things that we're going to be talking about, or if they don't publicly admit it, they are struggling with it behind the scenes. And I hopefully today, what my guest is going to share is going to help if you are struggling with some of the things that entrepreneurs struggle with, such as rejection and imposter syndrome and dealing with difficult situations and all of the above. So I would like to welcome my friend and just an amazing human being, Deanna Pelley.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to do this interview. I know it's been like a long time coming because we had to keep rescheduling because me and my crazy schedule and forgetting to put meetings on my schedule. But I am glad that we are having the chance to actually do this because, as I said, I mean, I know I struggle with some of the things that we're going to be talking about, and I think it's important to have the conversation because so often we want to push this stuff down, and everybody, I talk a lot about leadership, and leaders just want to portray themselves as they have everything together, and they don't, or they want to look good to everybody else. And behind the scenes, they're struggling with all kinds of self-doubt. So I'm really excited to have this conversation. I met Deanna. We were at an event in New York City back in October. And this super friendly face, oh my God, I thought there was a spider on the floor. I was like, is that what I think it is? It's not. It's my floor.
I've been there.
All right. So, but yes, we were at this event and I knew nobody at the event. And there is this friendly face, sitting 2 people down from me. And we had a break and we ended up chatting. And I was like, this person is the calmest, creates this very safe space for you to have a conversation in. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this, she's just so great. So that was how I met Deanna. And we've been kind of, chatting ever since. And like I said, I wanted to have her on the show. She is a licensed psychotherapist. And I love how you put this, and a dedicated partner in healing. I love that. She specializes in helping people healing trauma, finding more empathy, and really, really embracing being human. So, Deanna, tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here again. Thank you. I've been looking forward to this so much. It was like such a gift to meet you in New York, and I have fond memories. I'm going to get to my story, but fond memories of being dropped off in that Uber in the wrong location, and then we were just chatting and walking, and it was great.
Trying to figure out Times Square.
Yes. It's quite a place to navigate.
Being at the wrong gap.
Yes. It is. Yeah. And I live in Minneapolis, which I thought was like kind of a big city until I went to New York, and I was like, I guess not really. Anyway, so I've been a therapist for about 8 years now in private practice. And I have come to learn, I think, a lot of things in the therapy realm. And I love it. It's such a gift to be able to sit with people and to hear their stories and to just make space for that. People just need to be heard sometimes and understood. And that in and of itself, I think can be healing for people when people listen with the intent to understand your experience and not project their own thoughts or feelings onto it, but just to understand your experience. And one of the things that I've come to learn is that you can't go through life without feeling bad feelings. It's not possible. Sometimes things feel sad because they are sad. Sometimes things feel angering because they are angering in the same way that things feel happy because they're happy and they're good things. And to what you were just saying a minute ago in the entrepreneurship space and in the leadership space, I I think, yeah, we feel like we have to come and be all put together. And the presumption is that other people have it all together when we feel like we don't. And that's one of the most common things that I hear in my practice is that people will say, well, I just know that other people aren't struggling with these kinds of things. And usually I'll respond with, how do you know that? Like, how could you possibly know that? And it's, we can't know what's happening in other people. And I think, unfortunately, in our culture and society, we have conflated strength and resilience with looking and appearing happy and looking and appearing like you have it all together. And I think that that's been, unfortunately, one of the biggest downfalls because we don't make space for being human and it and we all have human moments.
That is so true. So very true, and it's funny because we all have human moments, but yet people don't want to it's almost like people don't wanna admit they're human,
Yeah.
because if they admit they're human, then they have to admit that they have a weakness,
Yes.
and people don't wanna admit that they're weaknesses, that they have a
Mhm.
that they're weak that
Mhm.
there is a weakness, I should say. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, listen to me. Um,
Yeah.
but it's funny because you have a statement that says being human isn't a weakness, it's our gift and we need to embrace it.
Mhm.
But yet we don't. And
Mm-mm.
why do you think that is?
I think we don't know how to. I think we don't know how to give space to ourselves to feel human feelings and experience human things. And then we don't know how to give space to other people for it. It is such a gift to be human. It is a gift to be able to feel. I cannot imagine what it would be like to go through this life without feeling the depth of excitement and joy and love that I feel. And those things are actually connected on the same continuum to the things that can feel really hard and really painful and really sad. Those things actually go hand in hand. And and man, I will tell you what, the relationships that I have in my life that are the most rich are the ones where I can bring myself forward, both the good and the bad, and know
Mhm.
that it's okay to do that in these relationships, that there is space to have a bad day, there's space to celebrate, there's space for all of it. And those are without a doubt the most rich relationships I have in my life. Mhm.
That's so true, and, it's like you have to see the person, including yourself,
Mhm.
from the whole.
Yeah.
So often we just wanna see it from one dimension.
Mhm.
We only wanna see and it's even and I think social media just has made it so bad, is
Mhm.
that, we get on social media and we see the it's like the final show of something. You don't see the behind the scenes. So what you end up doing is you end up comparing yourself and you say, "Oh, that person must have it all together," or that person
Yep.
must, you know they just have such a great life, and you don't see, like, the behind the scenes, but what we end up doing is we end up comparing ourselves,
Mhm.
or we end up feeling that not enough, and I'm
Yes.
sure you've had people that you've had conversations with where that not enough comes up.
Mhm.
Where do you think or what do you think we can do to, like, stop that? Or not even stop it, but embrace it more because that's part of being human, right?
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. I think not enough comes up so much, this idea that and I've felt that and experienced that in my own life where there must be, like, something wrong with me or something that I'm not doing right or not doing well enough, or do people just think I'm weird or something? You just wonder about those things. I think one of the ways that I hear the not enough come up is around dealing with disappointment and that sort of thing. So and I think that there's with this weird way that self-blame comes into disappointment. When I was little, I remember I grew up in Missouri. My mom was a teacher, and I remember, like, if there was snow in the forecast, it was very exciting. We'd be, like, waiting for a snow day. Is a snow day going to happen? And my mom would say to me, she'd say, "Don't get your hopes up. Just don't get your hopes up. Don't, it's probably not gonna happen. Don't get your hopes up." And I hear this type of statement a lot. I can't let myself get excited, whatever. But she would say, "Don't get your hopes up," and I think because what she didn't want was to feel disappointed when she also didn't get the snow day. If I
Yeah.
didn't get the snow day, all of that kind of stuff that's a really hard thing to deal with. Disappointment is hard to deal with. And this idea of not getting your hopes up and not it gets created this, I think, backhanded way of if you feel disappointment, or you feel like you don't measure up, it's your fault because you got your hopes up. You shouldn't have wanted something like that. And and I actually think that's also played this way in which people it can go into self-esteem. I think people don't take as many risks when
Mm.
trying to avoid getting their hopes up and that sort of thing. And so an example that I would have with that is like recently, I've told you I'm trying to launch a speaking career and I've done some speaking engagements. I love it. I love to be in front of an audience. I think it's so fun. And I filled out a speaker proposal and the speaker proposal was rejected. And what I will say is that did not feel good.
Yeah,
I wasn't
I
excited,
get that.
yeah, to get that rejection email. I
Yeah.
felt disappointed. I felt disappointed because I wanted to do it. I knew I wanted it. I'd allow myself to wanted it. I'm working for and towards this aspect of my career, and it was disappointing to me, which I chalk up actually is that's the appropriate response. I wanted something, I tried for something, and it didn't work out. I felt disappointed. I'm okay with that because on the back end of that, and this has taken me my own therapy work, my own work to get to, is like I was rejected, but I still believe that I have a valuable message. It didn't feel good to get rejected, but it's not going to stop me from trying in the future. I know that I can handle rejection because I still have something that I believe in and I still have something that I'm going to work towards. It feels way better when someone's like, "Yeah, we want you to come speak." But
Sure.
that feels like,
That's
"Wait."
that one-dimensional, like,
Mhm,
that everything just always works
mhm.
out, and
Yes.
that's what people wanna see, and again, they
Yeah.
see those people on social media where it looks like
Mhm.
everything just works out, and
Yes.
that's all they see,
Uh-huh.
but in reality, things at times, things don't work
Mhm.
out, and you are
Absolutely.
gonna have to face disappointment. So,
Mhm.
I have a question. So,
Yeah.
there are people, and I know I've experienced this myself, where it's not a matter of being rejected once,
Mhm.
but twice
Mhm.
and again
Mhm.
and again. So then what happens is then you start going to the other extreme of I'm not I'm not going to do this because it's not even just about I don't want to face disappointment or
Mhm.
rejection, but it's about, well, it's never worked and it's never going to work. So then we
Mhm.
start going down that path.
Yes.
What can we do to really start to handle those feelings or stop them before they get to the point where it's, well, it's never going to work for me? Because I
Mm.
know I have faced that
Yes.
myself in my
Yes.
business, where it's one thing after
Mhm.
another, and then you start to think to yourself, "Well, maybe I just don't deserve success."
Hmm.
So how can
I
we handle that?
well, I'm actually it compels me to want to answer a question with a question, which is you're still doing this. What has you still doing this?
What has me
Yeah,
still doing my business?
you're still doing your business. Uh-huh.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Um, so what has me still doing it is that I call it the 6th gear.
Mhm.
So it's like the sixth sense. It's like that 6th gear that it is this for me, it's this deep, deep, deep knowing
Mhm.
that I can figure this out.
Mhm.
But along the way, certain things that I wanna launch or certain things that I wanna do, I get frozen
Yeah.
many times over.
Mhm.
I'll get, especially if it's something big, like, I'll get frozen and think to myself, "Oh, I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't know if I should do this because it didn't
Mhm.
work before." And I know, a lot of people that I work with go through the same thing. But I think for me, the reason why I'm still doing it is because, number 1, I think it's that sixth sense, that very, very deep knowing that I can figure this out. But I think the other thing is that I just have such a huge desire to help people.
Yes, I love that. I think it's fun to hear from me what it is that propels people, because 'cause we're all different. If we were all the same, we'd all read the same self-help book and I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
And so, like that's how that would go. And so something that I think is interesting is like, so what you're talking about there, you said a couple minutes ago, people face like repeated rejection, and the narrative, everyone has kind of a narrative they associate with that. And like, this is never going to work for me. That's, I think, a really common one is this is never going to work. This is never going to happen. I have two things I wonder with that is one is if someone was in my therapy office, it'd be like, where did that narrative originate? Did it originate with this scenario? Or does that belief exist in you from a long time ago? Because sometimes the core beliefs that we have in ourselves exist from many, 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 they stem back to childhood more
Mm,
often than not, is what I've seen. And so that's one thing, and the other thing about those narratives is that in a way, I think at an unconscious level, we're trying to be self-protective with them. Again, it's the I'm not gonna let myself get my hopes up, right? If we can as if we can avoid disappointment. The disappointment will come whether we acknowledge that our hopes are up or not. And I think the same goes with something like this is, well, I'm gonna try to kind of tamper the disappointment that could come, tamper the bad feelings that could come by saying, well, this is never gonna work for me. This may never work for me. And then down the road, if it doesn't work, you'd be like, well, I just knew it. I shouldn't have tried. I shouldn't have done these things. And I think that, in the entrepreneurship space in particular, when things aren't working, we're trying the same thing and it's not working. That is a great time to be like, I have to tweak something.
mm,
Something about this isn't resonating in some way, shape, or form. And there can be a space to tweak it. Here's my experience that I have a lot. And I work with Jamar at Forever Media.
yes.
And I'll say to Jamar, I'll be like, this makes sense in my mind. Does it make sense to you? So I think sometimes what's happening in my mind and what makes sense in my mind, especially with my clinical training and experience, doesn't always resonate with the audience in the way that I'm looking for it to do so. And I think sometimes that can be part of the problem is, are we resonating with our audience in a way that works for them and
Yeah.
not for us, but still conveys our message? So I think that sometimes there's also we have to be able and be willing to be flexible and to change. I don't know, from what you've said, I imagine you could relate to this. My journey in entrepreneurship and working on things and projects outside of the therapy business has not gone the way I imagined it would have.
No, it rarely does.
No, it doesn't. It
Mine
doesn't.
did not either.
Mhm. But what's funny is if it had gone the way that it wouldn't I had imagined that it would go in my mind, I don't know that you and I would be having this conversation right now.
Probably not.
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
It had to go the way that it went
Mhm.
in order for us to meet or for
Yeah.
certain things to happen. And
Yes.
it's funny that you say that because so often, you know, what we wanna do, because it doesn't go the way that we wanted it to go, it's almost like we just try and make things bad things not happen, and we get so
Mhm.
focused on that
Mhm.
we miss the whole process
Yes.
of what's actually happening
Mhm.
and the path that got us here and to meet
Mhm.
certain people.
Yes.
And I think people spend and I look at it like they just spend an exorbitant amount of time just saying, "Well, this is how I thought it was gonna go." So then
Yeah.
what do? They just try and make that happen.
Yes, 100%. Mhm. Yes.
It's crazy.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
crazy, and
Uh-huh.
I think it does stem from what you said of, you know, people are just at the end of the day, they're just trying to avoid rejection. Or
Yes.
they're just so stuck on, "Well, this is what I wanted,"
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And,
Yep.
it's funny because my husband's little funny story. My husband and I were in the Caribbean. We're at the BVI's, and we're at this resort, and my husband orders a drink, and the woman comes over to make him this drink, and it's this wacky, like, Caribbean drink, and the woman is looking at him, and she is like, "I don't okay, like, le hold on, I'll be right back." And my husband's going, "I don't think she knows how to make this drink." So she ends up getting this guy, they get out this recipe book, they're talking to each other in
Mhm.
Caribbean
Mhm.
speak, 'cause so we can't understand them, and she's, like, trying to dig through this recipe, and they end up concocting this thing
Mhm.
that was blue. My husband's like, "I don't think it's supposed to be blue. It says it's supposed to be red."
Uh-huh.
So he's like, "I'm just gonna drink it." So he drinks it.
Mhm.
That night, he orders another one, and the guy knew how to make it, and he makes it, and sure enough, it's red. And my husband turns to me, and he says, because the woman's name was Jane, he goes, "Jane doesn't give you what you want, she gives you what you need." But it's kinda the
Mhm.
same thing, it's like the universe
Mhm.
gives you, like, what you need, and we
Every
just need to be able to see that. Because what the universe ends up giving us, even though in the moment it looks like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy, and this isn't what I wanted, and this is frustrating, and this is so hard, and I'm gonna give up,"
Mhm.
but really, it's teaching us something so that we can get to the other side, and
Mhm.
again, what we needed is far more amazing than what we thought we were gonna get,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yes. And, like, being able to be flexible, I think is such an important part of that, is allowing for flexibility and for change. Even on timelines. Again, like, the way things are launching in my life are is not on the timeline I thought it would be on, but actually
Faster or slower? Faster or
it's
slower?
much slower. It's much
Yeah.
slower, but I'm also in many ways, like, I'm quite okay with that because one of the things I've learned about myself along the way is I need to have time to rest. I need to have time to invest in relationships
Mhm.
outside of my business. And those things are really important to me, and those things hold a lot of value. And so some of what I wind up doing is saying no to things and delaying my own timeline, and that's okay. I can do that. I have the ability to do that, and I have a lot of grace for myself for that. And because I also know that at the end of the day, and I'm a pretty work-oriented person, when I left my job in higher education to become a therapist, I left with a maximum amount of paid vacation that I could take, you know, and get paid out when I left. And every year I was like using up vacation before it would end. Because I'm not good at taking time off and doing those things, but what I never regret is sometimes saying no to something, even if it means it delays something on my timeline in order to invest in another area of my life. Because business and work are very important, and I pour a lot into them. So is my family. So are the people that I love. So are the experiences that I have outside of it as well. And there has to be a way to balance it, and sometimes it means sacrificing in one area to do it.
Mhm. It's interesting because self-care, that's a big
Mhm.
topic,
It
and
is.
so many people, I mean, you talked about, and this is what I call toxic productivity. People just, and it's huge. It's like people wanna wear it
Mhm.
with a badge of honor that,
Yes.
"Well, I never took a sick day," or "I never took," I still have all of my vacation left.
Mhm.
And it's crazy because I think that feeds into the self-doubt.
Yes.
It feeds into you know, that I can't disappoint. I can't disappoint. I don't I and they
Huh?
care less about disappointing themselves
Yeah.
than they do about disappointing someone else.
Mhm.
I mean, does
Yes.
is that something that you see a lot or
I think it's very that I think sometimes we have this way of placing our value in something external. The fact that I didn't take a sick day, the fact that I powered through when I was sick and I still went to work and I still did all this productivity. We wear it as a badge of honor. We use it as a way to elevate ourselves compared to others. And those things to me actually feel really sad. Where's the richness in that? Where's the joy in that? It to me, and I've been that way and I've struggled with that. Not I still struggle with taking time off. That's hard for me to do, especially as someone who's self-employed. I'm very work oriented. But like when I think about my life and the things that matter, that's not a badge of honor. In a way, it's kind of like something that's almost like it's more of a badge of something that I struggle with.
Mm.
And that sort of thing. And what I've had to learn to do myself is look inward at me for the things that I bring that are valuable, the things that I have within myself that I want to be proud of, that I want to invest in. And it's not taking time off. It's like the relationships that I build. It's those things.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do you think when you look inside yourself? What do you think is most valuable about you?
Mm. Mm. You know, I think that many years ago when people met me, they thought I was like I used to get feedback that I was intimidating, which was always so funny to
Really?
me because I was like, "What? Why?" Um, and I've gotten that feedback on from time to time, but what I want to be is someone who loves people well. I really do. Like, my best friend on this whole planet is my sister. Without a
Yes.
doubt. She comes up in every conversation I have. I love her so much. I live in Minneapolis. She lives in Virginia with her husband. And I just love her so much. And something that I can say about her is I know how much she loves me and that she loves me well. And there isn't any doubt to that. And I can like there's such safety in that. There's an assurance in that. And and I think she would say the same thing about me. I know she would. But in general, I want to be someone who really loves people well, who takes the time to listen and to care about people and to understand them, both in the context of my job and outside in the world. And I think part of loving people well is making space for people to be human around me,
Mhm.
however that humanness shows up, because it's not always, you know, happiness and excitement. And so with that, I have really rich relationships in my life, and that matters to me.
Well, you can definitely see that. I mean, when I first met you, like I said, you just have such a kind presence about you, and I was like, "I need to get to know this girl because she's just so nice." And you really, I mean, one of the things that's on your website is, like, you make intentional space for people and their stories,
Mhm.
and you absolutely 100% do that. I thought I had a bee floating around in front of me. We're gonna take a pause for a second. I just wanna tell everyone who's listening that
Mhm.
if you hear tapping and stuff, it's because we have a new roof being put on, and I had to switch spaces, and they decided to, like, go back to work right when we started this, and
Mhm.
it's live. This is live. Like, things
Mhm.
happen. Things happen on my podcast all the time. Okay,
Mhm.
back to our regular schedule program.
Yes.
So, just gotta roll with it, right?
Absolutely.
Gotta roll with it.
Gotta roll with it.
Um, so let's talk about I wanna talk a little bit about, we were talking. I'm gonna go back to the self-care. We were talking
Mhm.
about self-care, and we were talking about how people wear a badge of honor that you just need to, like, plow through something.
Yeah.
You just
Uh-huh.
need to fight through it. You just need
Mhm.
to, like, put a smile on.
Mhm.
You're here to do your job. You just need to just do it.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we were talking about before we jumped on the podcast is, how Simone Biles ended up dropping out or taking some time off from gymnastics
Mhm.
and kinda how that was viewed. And you made a really good point, like, it was viewed one of 2 ways.
Mhm.
So, let's talk a little bit about that and how that is part of this conversation that we're having.
Yeah. So Simone Miles, I can't remember which Olympics it was now. It wasn't the most recent. It was the one
No, it was the
before
one
some.
before that,
Yeah.
yeah.
and sometimes I get confused where we are in this whole Olympic cycle, but nonetheless, she'd gone to the Olympics and she ultimately wound up, I think, withdrawing from most, if not every event. I don't remember all the specifics on it. But I think I remember reading or hearing that she'd been like spinning in the air, doing all kinds of things that I cannot do, and lost space mentally of like where she was. And it makes sense to me that would be extraordinarily dangerous and terrifying for the athlete to not have a sense of where you are and when you'll be landing. Um, and that there are two narratives to that. And I've heard the narratives, one narrative from a politician in this country who shared about how like that was weakness. It was weakness to withdraw. It was weakness to back out of that. You don't go to the Olympics to withdraw. You go to the Olympics to compete. And the other narrative around that is that it showed extraordinary strength and resilience. And to be able to know, for Simone Biles to know herself well enough to know that she was not safe to compete. And I would hope with that, only Simone could speak for herself, but I would hope with that, Simone knew her value and her worth apart from withdrawing from that competition. And that's critical. When we can know our value and our worth enough to say, I can't do this thing. I need to say no to whatever this is, to say, you know what, someone else rejected me, but I still have the value and worth. I still have this because it comes from within. And that's where I'd say, like, even to taking time off and all of that, that's not the badge of honor. The badge of honor is how you see yourself. Do you know and trust in your goodness? Are you showing up, not 100% of the time, but are you showing up as the person you want to be in this world? I don't show up 100% of the time as the person I want to be in this world, but I do know who I am. And it's taken me a lot of work to get there. I've done over 10 years of my own therapy, you guys. So I didn't just have this. I had to work for it. Part of that is accepting the parts of myself that I don't like as much as the other parts of myself, because I promise they do exist. I have tested negative for patience almost every day of my life, including this morning. I'm not a very patient person.
All good.
Somewhat of a joke within my family, but I'm not super super patient. But nonetheless, this Simone Biles story is one that it's so curious to me how we spin two different narratives around it. And what I wish is
Mhm.
that we could all see it as a narrative of strength and of resilience and of someone knowing themselves well enough to know their limits. And I hope on the back of that end, know their worth, even though other people were being very critical of that. And I
And that's
hope that,
hard.
yeah,
That's
it
hard for
is.
people.
It
That's
is.
hard for people because as soon as and this goes back to the rejection and the
Mhm,
disappointment, as soon as you put a post out there
mhm.
and you get haters on the post,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, I'm not worth anything.
Mhm.
Or I remember when I first started my consulting business, 12 years ago, I had a couple clients who were very, very challenging and very difficult. And we ended up parting ways. And I took it as I'm not worthy. I'm
Mhm.
not valuable. And I think a lot of people do that is when the
Yes.
criticism starts. I mean,
Mhm.
it takes a lot to really understand who you are
Yes, it does.
and
Yeah.
have that connection to self.
Mhm.
And I think, we start off being an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
We're taught at a very young age to build from the outside in,
Mhm.
not the inside out.
Mhm.
And you start off as an entrepreneur and you're like, "Yep, I know who I am." And then the criticism comes, the rejection comes. And then what happens is we start putting labels on ourselves and we start building that wall.
Yes.
And then it nicks away at your worth to the point where then behind the scenes, the self-doubt is there.
Mhm.
The imposter syndrome is there. And it kinda just goes from and I think that's why most people quit.
Yes. Yes. Because it's hard. It requires so much perseverance and determination. And like, it's also kind of lonely. Entrepreneurship is. You're kind of on your
Mhm.
own little island. But yeah,
Yeah.
I've even starting my therapy business. I mean, similar to kind of what you're talking about. Like, not everybody has stuck with me. Not everybody, and that was especially hard for me at the outset. It was like, I must be a bad therapist. I must not know what I'm doing. I must all of these kinds of things. And now, if I ever have an opening and someone comes and they don't stick, it's okay, because I still believe that I'm a good therapist, but I'm not the right therapist for everyone. But I've worked hard to be able to do this job and to do it well. And so I'm grateful that I've been able to build that narrative. But you're absolutely right. From a young age, we're often taught to build confidence outside of ourselves and through other people's perception of us or what they're telling us, versus being able to look inward and build the confidence that we need and the worth that we need from a genuine inside point. And then that's when we become adults, where we're looking outside of ourselves for that validation, and we're not able to look inward and say, you know what, I bring something really great to the table, and maybe it's not what people need at this time, or maybe others don't see it, but I still have value, I still have worth, and I'm gonna keep trying because I know this to be true of myself.
But it's easier said than done.
So much easier said than done. I struggle with it, Teresa. I struggle
So
with it.
so what do you think, like, what would be, like, something that you could tell the people that are listening if they're struggling with that?
Mhm.
Like, what are just, like, a few things that they could do to, like, really understand, like, what their self-worth like, what their value
Mhm.
is, and really connect with that to kinda help to build up that start building up
You're
that strength, because that confidence muscle, that it's gotta be built
It
over
does have
time.
to be built, and it is like
Yeah.
building a muscle at the gym, and
Mhm.
it takes time. You don't go to the gym and decide you wanna bench press 100 pounds, having never lifted, and just, like, incrementally increase your weight by 5 pounds every time you go to the gym. It doesn't work that way. So, building this is very much like building a muscle, and so a couple things that I would say with that. The first is, when you have those moments of self-doubt, I really actually don't think we're born with self-doubt. I think we're taught it along the way. Is
Mm.
Where does that start from? Whose voice is that? Where did that voice originate from? Sometimes it belongs to a parent, sometimes it belongs to some other instrumental person in childhood. And then it gets reinforced along the way. We internalize it really strongly, and it becomes a core part of who we are. And, like, is that really you? Is it truly? So that would be one thing that I would think of. The other thing is, what do you have that you bring to the table would be what I would wanna know, is, like, what do you have in the entrepreneurship that you bring to the table? There is something, like what you were talking about earlier, this, like, core drive and passion. Like, that's huge. Tap into that. You have got that, and it makes it so that you can't stop. You have to roll with that because you have something that you believe in about
Mhm.
yourself, it sounds like to me, that you
Mhm.
believe in, that you have to bring forward. That is a gift, to be able to have that, to tap into that, to know that about yourself. And the doubts that exist don't change that core about you, even though the doubts are there. And sometimes doubts come in, they're gonna come. We can never get rid of them permanently, but it doesn't mean that you are what those narratives say that you are. And one thing that's important for me to do, and I have days where I'm like, I just suck, and I have, again, I'm fortunate to have really good relationships in my life. That may be a time where I lean into that, and it's hard for me to ask for help. That is very hard for me, as it is, I think, for many entrepreneurs. But where I lean
I
into
get
that,
it.
and I'll reach out to someone and say, I need you to remind me of who I am and what I bring to this table, because I can't find it in myself right now.
Mm.
And it really, I think I can't remember. I think it was Simon Sinek who said, I heard it in a video, that we don't build trust by giving help. We build trust by asking for it. And that has been very, very pivotal for me. Is like, that strengthens all of those relationships. That inevitably, when I lean in and say, you know what, I'm really struggling and I need you to remind me of what I bring, and the things that you see in me that are good, it helps me a lot. And we need relationships. We need them, especially in the entrepreneurship space. Again, I mean, another thing that we've done in this world is said that if and in this society, at least this Western society, has said that if you can do it on your own, you're so good, you're so strong, well done. I call BS on that. Absolutely not. I don't wanna do it on my own. I do a lot of things in entrepreneurship on my own, but I actually don't want that in my life. That does not help me in any way, shape, or form. It is lonely, and I need those people who can help remind me that, "Yeah, I got this." Mhm.
Yeah. So your person, is it your sister, or do you have other people? I know it's
Yeah,
your
so
sister, but
my sister, yeah, she's my number one. She's 7 years younger than me. I've known her whole life. That's what I'll say is I've known her
yeah.
her whole life. I remember going to the hospital to hold her. I was so excited for her to be born. I couldn't wait to have a sister. And so, yeah, she's one absolutely, and she can usually like tell pretty quickly. She'll be like, "What's the look on your face? Why are you like that?" And I have some really great friends that I've had in college that I've had for a very long time, who remind me and help lift me up when I need it. And then I met this really great guy on Tinder in November. He's so fun. He's and on Tinder, Teresa, Tinder.
Oh my
I gave it a
gosh.
shot because it's got the biggest pool, and I'm glad that I did. I met a really wonderful man named Dan, who also helps to remind me of who I
Awesome.
am and what he sees.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah, and that's helpful to me, and I need that, and it strengthens a relationship ultimately. And the same when he gives me space to do that for him.
It is hard. I know it's for me, it's really hard to I'm getting better with it, to reach
Mhm.
out to somebody and say, "Hey, like, can you just remind me?" Like, because right now, like, the voice is there telling
Yep.
me, "No, you're not so good." It's hard for people to do that,
Mhm.
especially since, you know, like, if you do that,
Mhm.
it's people think, "Oh, it's a sign of weakness. You can
Yeah.
figure this out by yourself." And the truth is that it's
Mm-mm.
the actual opposite. Hey, who
Mhm.
would have thunk about Tinder?
I
I'm
know,
glad
right?
that you
I know. Mhm. I know. It's so great. Mhm.
I
Uh-huh. You were talking about
who would have
rejection,
thought?
that's hard. Dating is hard. There's a lot of
Oh my
rejection in
god.
dating, but yeah, who'd have thunk
I told
Tinder?
my husband
Mhm.
I told my husband, "If something happens to you, I'm becoming a nun. I'm telling you. I'm just I'm not I'm
Mhm.
not doing this again. This is
Mhm.
husband number 2.
Uh-huh.
Like, if something happens to you, like, I'm just gonna become a nun
Yep.
because,
Mhm.
you know, forget it."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will say I did meet someone on Tinder. So, and I love I
That's
love telling
awesome.
people that because it's true. And also, yeah, and that's a space where I felt a lot of rejection, a lot of hopelessness, all kinds of things where I struggled to maintain a sense of value was in the dating realm. And yeah. Yeah. I'm it's hard. It's a
Yeah.
hard space for that. But yeah.
Well, and the whole swipe left, swipe right, like, that
Oh
made it
gosh.
even worse. And
I know. I know. It's such a nightmare. It's so complicated, and it's like a means, how else do you meet people? That's what everyone
yeah,
says. Mhm.
the library.
Yeah.
Just
Right?
kidding.
Who's that? Yeah.
That's what it
Uh-huh.
used to be. Just go to the library to meet
L
somebody.
library. I love that.
Who?
Mhm. Yeah, who? Who would you meet at who's going to the library? I'm always looking on the library app, man.
I know.
I love
There's
this.
some really hot librarians
Right.
or just people reading books.
Uh-huh. Well, that is yeah.
You never
Uh-huh.
know. You never
You
know.
never know.
So
Mhm.
tell me about making people make sense. I
Mhm.
thought that was the name of your business, and
Yeah.
but
Uh-huh.
now we determined that's going
Mhm.
to be the name. But tell me
Yes.
about where making people make sense comes from.
So it is my Instagram handle. I'm not very good about posting there, but it is my Instagram handle. And it came from being a therapist. One thing that again I've had probably 10 or 12, 15 things that I've learned as being a therapist. And one of them is that if we can make sense of why someone is the way they are, everything can make sense. It doesn't mean that it makes it right. It doesn't mean that we like it, but it can make sense. And I think we don't do a good job of making sense of ourselves. We're too busy wishing that we felt different or wishing that we were different in some way, shape, or form that we don't allow ourselves to like really self-reflect and know ourselves and make sense of why we are the way we are.
Mm.
But like everyone has a different story and a different experiences that lead them to show up in the world the way that they do. And and if we can make sense of that, we can have more empathy for people. So much more empathy for people. Like it all makes
Mhm.
sense. I love analyzing movie and book and TV characters. They're so fascinating to me. And because I'm a therapist, I can't stop. I can't stop my mind from doing this. I can't do it at all, but it all makes sense, even the characters sometimes that I dislike or that 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 don't feel like they're like me, it all makes sense. And so anytime in the therapy space or outside of it, when someone explains their story to me, they explain to me what they were feeling or why they made the choices they made, it always makes sense to me. It may not be what I think I would do in the moment, but actually chances are, who knows what I would do in a moment, but it makes sense to me. And that's where, yeah, we'd have more empathy. Again, if we were all the same, we'd all read the same self-help book and I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah,
I just
I
wouldn't,
wouldn't either.
right? Yeah. And we're not all the same, and that's actually a great thing, right? Like, I think I in large part wound up a therapist because my brother died of cancer when I was a kid. Like, I grew up in a space of grief and loss. I was 3 and a half when he died. He was 8 when he died, and that's,
Wow.
I mean, that's been over he died in '89, so that was a long time ago. And my parents, my dad's 72, my mom's 70. Like, my parents still grieve that loss. They don't live
Mhm.
in a constant state of the grief that was the same, within the first couple of years. But I don't think you ever stop grieving someone that you've loved and lost. And that has
No.
I can't imagine that I might not be a therapist if that hadn't been part of my experience and part of my story.
Wow.
Mhm.
I did not know that
Mhm.
about you, and you're right. I mean, my I talk about it a lot in the show, but my best friend and business partner,
Mhm.
she died in, 2021,
Mhm.
and to this day, and even, like, going through the grieving process, 'cause when she died, like, it didn't start until,
Mhm.
like, a year or 2 after
Yeah.
when it, like, really started to hit,
Mhm.
and just the layers of trauma
Mhm. Yeah.
that I had to uncover,
Mhm.
and I had to kind of peel back in going through my own therapy. I did EMDR and
Yeah.
just kind of peeling back and didn't really realize what was there.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people are and grief, a friend of mine, her dad just passed away, and I told her, I said, "Look," because she said, "I just don't understand because one minute I'm fine and the next minute I'm not." And I'm like, grief
Mhm.
does not it
Mm-mm.
it doesn't
No.
say, "Okay, it's 2 o'clock. You
Yep.
ready?" It
Yeah.
just it just happens, and the other thing is that grief also it's different for people,
Yes, it is. Yes.
for sure,
Mhm.
but it also shows you where there was this underlying trauma that you didn't even realize was
Mhm.
there.
Yes. It's crazy what it triggers in you and all of that. Just last year, almost exactly a year ago, not quite. I have a friend, of mine who I used to work with in higher education, whose 11-year-old son died of cancer. And he had a form of cancer that's largely beatable, in that age. And I
Wow.
and I went to the funeral, and it was so, it was just like, oh god, it was so hard. And it was so interesting to see because it was a mom and a dad who lost their older son and had a younger daughter, and that was exactly my family. It was
Wow.
like my sister hadn't been born yet, she hadn't come along yet, and it was, my parents and my older brother died, and then me, and it was so interesting to look at that, and there was a lot for me to think about and process with that, and that is a space, like, both as a human and clinically that I can be in with people because I know it well, and we don't do grief
Mhm.
real well, right? Like, you get 3 bereavement days, somebody brings you a casserole, and then you better stop being sad. It's
Exactly.
not convenient for everyone else, and people don't wanna think about it because we can't avoid grief in our life, and it just gets, we could have a
Well,
whole
that
nother
goes
conversation.
back to it
Mhm.
goes back to the whole thing of what we're talking about with people want to avoid feeling
They
bad.
do. They do, and you can't. The
You
grief
can't.
hurts, and that's the appropriate response. They can also bring a lot of other emotions, not just hurt. But yeah, it feels sad because it is sad. Like, yes, of course it does. It's Yes, it's devastating to lose a child, to lose someone you love and care about. I mean, yes, it can also be a relief. It can be all kinds of things at one time, but it feels sad because it is sad. And yeah, we conflate, the idea of pushing through and powering through with resilience. And I don't think that's resilience. I think that's avoidance.
Mm,
That's what I think it
for
really is.
sure.
That's avoidance, and it'll come out later. It'll hit you later.
No,
Mhm.
definitely, and I
Mhm.
think the more you avoid it, I mean, people you're right, people mess up what
Mhm.
resilience really means,
Yes.
and I think the more you avoid it, the worse it gets. It's
Yes.
just like a bad conversation that you need to
Mhm.
have. The more you avoid it, the worse it gets.
Mhm.
But I think, to kinda bring this full circle is the more you know and connect to your
Mhm.
true self,
Mhm.
flaws and all, the more you're gonna be able to handle, not even handle, but you're going to be able to really integrate whatever feelings come up
Mhm. Yes.
or whatever
Yep.
situations come up,
Mhm.
and instead of wanting to push them away, it comes back to, like, looking at what do I need to learn from this, and
Mhm.
what is this trying to show me?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much and yeah, it's like when I have a bad day, sometimes I just let myself have a bad day. It doesn't mean that the next day is gonna be bad. Sometimes I just have a bad day and I'm frustrated and I'm able to sit with it and work through it and I feel frustrated not because I'm bad, but because I'm human. And those days happen. It doesn't mean the next day will be bad. It just means that sometimes we have rough days. And
Yeah,
that's part of being human. It's part of leaning on other people. And and I keep going because my I'm not I don't I don't wind up being reduced to having a bad day. I'm not bad day Deanna. I'm Deanna
no,
with all these great qualities who had a bad day and also some bad qualities like my lack of patience among other things. But nonetheless, I'm all of those things, Deanna, who had a bad day and I'll be okay.
they don't define you,
No, they
whereas a
don't.
lot of people let
Mhm.
that circumstance that happened in that day
Mhm.
define who they are, and I
Mhm.
think that's the narrative that we need to shift.
Yes.
Absolutely, for sure. It's funny, as you were talking about grief and you said something, I have a friend and his son, he his son was in his 30s, and his son all his life was in trouble with the law,
Mm.
had anger issues, had substance abuse issues, was constantly like they were constantly bailing him out and dealing with things. And, he would go to a hotel with friends and get completely drunk and destroy the
Mhm.
hotel room. And then, they were bailing him out and they were paying for all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
And it was just crazy. And his son accidentally died with a mixture of medications, and it was an accident, and
Mhm.
I remember him saying to me, "I am sad that my son's not here, but at the same time, there's some form of relief," and he
Yeah.
said, "I feel like an awful person." I said, "Look, you feel how you feel.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong. It's just that
Mhm.
it's how you feel."
Yes.
And for the longest time, he beat himself up over that.
Ugh. We feel before we think. You feel
Mhm.
first. Babies feel. You see it in infants. They can't tell you that they're sad when their mom leaves the room, but they're sad, or that they're happy and having a good time, but you can see that they're happy. You feel before you think. I hear people say all the time, you can't let yourself feel that way, or I can't let myself feel that way. And it makes me so angry. It irritates me when people say that. It's not about letting, I would take the let out of it. What you can do is you can understand why you feel the way you feel. And you stand to gain so much more if you understand what's being activated inside of you. You can tap into what you need, you can tap into your own triggers, all kinds of things. Letting isn't the problem. We never say that when someone's happy. We're like, don't let yourself be so happy that you just, got a promotion. We don't say that. It's such a double standard. You can understand why you feel the way you do. And they happen instinctively and instinctually. And it makes so much sense to me that your friend would have felt relief. And I can imagine that I might have felt the exact same way in his shoes and in his position.
It's part of being human.
It is absolutely part of being human.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely
Mhm.
part of being human, and, again, being human comes with all kinds of feelings and emotions and things
Mhm.
and stuff that we push down, but we need to not push down.
Right. Yes.
So I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, if we talk about leadership, and we talk about, leaders and entrepreneurs and stuff, how can because I have a there's a whole section in my book about how our greatest flaws or weaknesses are actually strengths in disguise.
Mhm.
So, how can leaders or parents or just entrepreneurs in general, how can we help others, whether it's someone on your team or it's your kids or it's a fellow entrepreneur that you're working
Mhm.
with. How can we help people embrace their flaws even more to really uncover those strengths?
Mm. I think I the first thing that comes to mind is accepting those flaws in someone else. Like allowing the
Mm.
flaws to exist because we have them, right? We have them. Everyone has flaws. And so what people have a tendency to do is feel a ton of shame around their flaws. Other people don't have these same flaws. Only I have them. It can be kind of the narrative that comes in. And nope, we have flaws. What's so important is that we can recognize our flaws, that we're able to see how they hinder us, that we see how they get in the way, and that we're able to kind of anticipate and work with them. I have to sometimes just be like, Deanna, you've got to be patient right now. Slow down.
Yeah, yeah.
you
I
know,
hear
uh,
you on that.
yes, among other things. And so that's one where I think, allow people to have them because they're going to have flaws. You aren't bad because you have flaws. You have flaws because you're human. So what I would want to know, I think if it were a friend of mine in entrepreneurship is like, how can we support you in the midst of these flaws? Like what do you need in order to be successful in spite of these flaws? How can I support you? Because sometimes one other person's set of flaws is our strength. And that again, we gotta lean on each other. We gotta utilize relationship.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Oh, I love that. So besides my business,
mhm,
I also am a COO, CEO for 2 other businesses for a
mhm,
client of mine, and it was funny because we had this conversation the other day where it just takes you don't have to be best friends with somebody, but it just takes one simple act of kindness in
mhm.
seeing someone else,
Yes.
like,
Yep.
actually seeing them, and, someone's having a bad day and you see that they're a bit off and just asking
Mhm,
them, "Hey, can I help you? Can I help?"
mhm,
This happened to be a dishwasher, and it was a manager that went back to the dishwasher, saw he was just, like, obviously having a bad day, and
mhm.
took 30 seconds to help him get caught up on dishes, and it
Yeah.
made the world of difference.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah,
What a difference versus criticizing for the bad day and say what could have the narrative around that could have been like, "Don't let the day get to you," or "You still have to do your job," all this kind of stuff. Instead, that guy sends it's an extension of grace and
yeah,
understanding. Mhm.
yeah.
That flips things around.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely, and I think that's one thing that we're missing right now, just with everything that's going on
Yeah.
all over the place is
Mhm.
is just that, again, being human and really extending that hand to say, "Hey, I'm here to help. How can I
Mhm.
help you?"
Yes.
Which I think is you've said that multiple times. "How can I help you? How can I support you?
Uh-huh.
How can I remind you just how great you are?"
Uh-huh.
And it's one sentence. One
Yes.
sentence,
Yeah.
one sentence, like, a second to, like, just say it, and I think people miss that the most. The other question I have for you is I'm gonna go back to what is in your bio. How can we make that intentional space for people so that they come the other direction, they say, "Hey, I need help." Just like Simon Sinek says, "You don't build
Mhm.
trust by helping, you build trust by asking for help." So how can we really create that intentional space to build better relationships so that we can help people embrace being human?
I think it's in listening. In the English language, the word listen and silent are spelled with the same letters. In
Oh,
order for
wow. I didn't even
Yeah,
know
in
that.
order for me to hear, I have to be quiet, and I have to take in all of what someone is telling me, and allow people to have an experience that's different than mine. We do not all experience life and everything the same way. So, I have to listen and allow someone else's other experience to to be different than mine. And and that's okay. And the safety that comes from people being allowed to be themselves, to react or feel or struggle or celebrate in the ways that they do is just such a gift. Again, the relationships that I have in my life that are most rich are people that listen to me and understand me as I am and as I explain it. And with that too then comes, it I don't as a therapist, I'm not a professional advice giver. That's like such a misconception, is that we give advice all day. And like I could give advice till I'm blue in the face and no one would listen. But I don't give advice really unless I'm asked for it. And part of that is because actually in the therapy space in particular is like the ideal is that what people are doing is that they're able to look inward and know and trust themselves for what they need to do. Trust and learn on their own, lean on their own knowledge of what they want. And we often want to give advice, I think, especially when someone is struggling, because it feels uncomfortable to sit in discomfort. We want to hop out of it by giving advice. I've never met anyone who's like, I just don't have enough people giving me advice. What? No one says that. I don't feel that way.
No one said that ever.
What people need is for someone to listen to them. So I think that would be what I would say is it's in listening. Just listen.
I love that. Ugh, this was such a great
So
conversation.
fun.
Oh my gosh. Before I
Mhm.
let you go, I have 2 questions for you.
Mhm.
What is something funny and interesting about you that people might not know?
Ooh, funny and interesting about me that people may not know.
And I just wanna tell you, I loved your dry sense of humor because I have a dry sense of
So
humor.
glad. I'm so glad. Yeah, I have a comment for everything. I
No,
do.
it's the best.
Uh-huh. Yeah, like the last time my sister came to Minnesota to visit, we were just like we have this way of communicating where my boyfriend actually says we feed off each other. And my sister said in the car, she goes, "I miss us." I said, "Me too. I miss us too." Um, so I guess interesting about me. That's always a tough question, right? Like, I'm always like, "What's interesting about me?" Well, I guess I have three things that like somehow they don't really make sense that they go together that I do and that I enjoy. And one of them is that I do hand embroidery. I embroidered that right there behind me. I joke that it's like
Oh,
my old lady habit, but it's like coloring with a needle and thread, and I love it. So I
love
do that.
that.
I love to go camping. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I enjoy playing poker a lot. I haven't played in a while now, but I love to play poker. And they're, I guess, like three things that feel a little bit like they don't belong in the same like puzzle, but they're all part of me. Mhm.
My
Mhm.
sister's a therapist, and
Uh-huh.
she loves to embroider. She does hand embroidery too.
Huh. That's
She does
fun.
not like oh, wait, no, wait, she does like camping, but
Okay.
she doesn't play poker, but she plays
Mhm.
pool.
Fun.
She used to hustle the
Yeah.
guys in the pool hall.
I'm telling you. It's like people really
It's a
underestimate me
therapist
as a
thing.
woman, so I bet she was really underestimated. Good for her. Yep.
Yes, she
Mhm.
was.
Yeah.
Okay, my last question for you. Actually, I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Before I ask you my last question, did you ever read The Pivot Year
No.
by Brianna Wiest?
Uh-uh. No.
Gotta get it.
All right,
You
I'm
gotta
gonna
get because a couple of the things that you said, you read a chapter, and this is
Mhm.
like a little plug for her book. You read every day, it goes by day, so there's 365 chapters. So every day you read a chapter, and the chapters are like a paragraph.
Oh, great.
So
All right.
it's so good,
I'm gonna check
so
these
good.
out. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. What are you most grateful for? Last question.
Oh, I think I'd have to say my family and the relationships I have in my life, hands down. I it's yeah, it's such a gift to have people that love you and that love you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, thank
Mhm.
you so much.
Yeah.
I love you.
Oh
Thank
my
you
gosh, I love you
so
too. This was
much
so fun.
for being on the show and
Mhm.
dealing with the roofers and all the craziness that happened. But, it's just been such an honor to have you on, and this conversation is so good. I think this is the longest episode I've ever done.
Oh,
Um, I
mhm.
mean, I could talk to you for hours
Yeah, I feel
about
like
this
we could
stuff.
keep going. Mhm.
Hours, and I think, like I said, so many people struggle with it. And,
Mhm.
I work with leaders every day. And I'll tell you, I don't care if you are an executive of a billion-dollar business or you're a CEO of a Main Street business,
Mhm.
everybody, like, they
Yeah.
struggles with the doubt, the self-doubt, the fear of rejection, the
Mhm.
fear of what if this doesn't work, and just really trying to hide their
Mhm.
human instead of let it really shine.
Yeah.
So I think this episode is really gonna help a lot of people, and, we're gonna have to have you back on the show.
Oh, I hope so. I loved it. This is so fun. I love doing this. So thank you for having me. This has just been
Awesome,
fun.
awesome.
Mhm.
So tell everybody how they can find you and
Sure.
what you have coming up.
Well, so the best place you can find me on Instagram at Making People Make Sense or LinkedIn, Deanna Pelley, MALPCC. You'll see my picture. It'll say something about how being human isn't a weakness. You'll see that on the I can't even remember the name of the picture, that whatever that big long one is behind your profile
Banner,
picture.
whatever,
That's it.
yeah.
I knew it was something. So you can find me there. And then what I'm most excited on that I'm working on, in addition to taking advantage of any and every speaking opportunity, is I'm working ever so slowly on my very first book. So I'm having a good time. It's helping me sort out and organize my own mind. And yeah, I'm having a great time with it. Mhm.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
Mhm.
Well, definitely check Deanna out on the socials, and we will have you back on the show. You're gonna have to tell us about your book, and I'm almost done with my first draft. So,
That's so wonderful.
yeah,
Well, that feels
so
so good. Mhm.
I'm aiming to get it done in the next
Yeah.
not this weekend, next weekend. So, that's a therapeutic process in itself.
Yes, it
So,
is. Yes, it
yeah,
is. Yeah. It's a good process, but it's something.
it's something.
Yes.
It's something.
Mhm.
All right, everyone. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And make sure to check out Deanna on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And you can also, we'll drop your links into the show notes. But until next time, I hope everybody takes care of each other just a little bit more than we already do. Bye for now. Hey there. Thank you so much for listening. If you found value on this show, please follow the podcast so you never, ever miss an episode. And I would love, love, love if you would leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify for me. Even better, share the show with a fellow business owner ready to step fully into their CEO leadership role. Because right now, more than ever, the world really needs next level leaders. And by the way, did you know you can text me all your questions and get real-time feedback? You absolutely can. Just text the word CEO to me at 610-215-2838 to get connected. One last goodie for you before I go. If you're ready to scale your business and have a co-creator working right by your side, my C-Suite Mentor Program may be perfect for you and your possible new second in command. Just visit thecsuitementor.com to get started.